The dark psychology of manipulation, how to recognize it. Have you ever walked away from a conversation, feeling confused, guilty, or smaller than when it started, and you couldn't quite explain why? You didn't lose an argument, you didn't do anything wrong, but somehow you feel like you did. That feeling has a name. It's the fingerprint of manipulation. And today, we're going to break down exactly how it works, the tactics manipulators use without you even noticing, and most importantly, how you can spot it before it changes the way you think about yourself. Manipulation is different from persuasion. Persuasion respects your right to say no. Manipulation removes that right without you realizing it's gone. It works quietly in the background of your mind, using psychological pressure points that most people have never been taught to recognize. So let's open up the playbook. The first tactic is called gaslighting. This is one of the most damaging forms of manipulation because it doesn't attack what you did, it attacks what you know to be true. A gaslighter will deny things they clearly said. They'll tell you that you're remembering it wrong, that you're too sensitive, that you're overreacting. And here's the dangerous part. Over time, you stop trusting your own memory. You start needing their version of events to feel real. Once that happens, they don't need to control your actions anymore. They control your reality. If you ever find yourself constantly apologizing for things you're not even sure you did wrong, that's a signal worth paying attention to. The second tactic is love bombing. This one is common in relationships, but it also shows up in friendships, workplaces, and even cults. It starts with overwhelming affection, constant compliments, intense attention, grand gestures, making you feel like you've finally found someone who truly sees you. It feels incredible. But that's exactly the point. Love bombing creates a fast emotional bond before trust has actually been earned. Once that bond is in place, the manipulator has leverage. The affection often becomes conditional, and slowly it gets pulled back, just enough to keep you chasing the version of them you experienced at the beginning. The third tactic is called the foot in the door technique. This is subtle, and it's used constantly in both personal and professional manipulation. It starts with a small, reasonable request, something you'd say yes to without thinking twice. Once you agree, the requests slowly escalate. Each new ask feels like a small step from the last one, so it never feels alarming in the moment. But if you zoom out and compare where you started to where you ended up, the distance is enormous. Manipulators use this because consistency is a powerful psychological force. Once you've said yes once, your brain wants to stay consistent with that decision, even when the situation has changed completely. The fourth tactic is guilt tripping. This is one of the oldest manipulation tools in existence, and it works because guilt is a heavy emotion that most people will do almost anything to escape. A manipulator using guilt will frame their needs as your responsibility. They'll say things like, well, after everything I've done for you, or I guess I just don't matter to you. Notice that this isn't a request, it's an emotional trap. You're not being asked to help. You're being made to feel like a bad person if you don't comply. The goal isn't cooperation. The goal is control through discomfort. The fifth tactics is triangulation. This happens when a manipulator brings a third person into the dynamic to create jealousy, competition, or insecurity. It might be an ex-partner they keep mentioning, a co-worker they compare you to, or a friend they claim agrees with them. The purpose is to make you feel replaceable, so you work harder to secure their approval. Triangulation is particularly effective because it doesn't just target you directly, it makes you doubt your own value in comparison to someone else. The sixth tactic is the silent treatment, also known as stonewalling. Instead of communicating, the manipulator shuts down completely. No explanation, no closure, just cold, deliberate silence. This isn't about needing space. Genuine space is calm. This is about punishment. The silence is designed to make you anxious enough that you'll do anything to fix things, even if you didn't cause the problem in the first place. It shifts the entire emotional burden onto you, while they maintain complete control over when the conversation resumes. The seventh tactic is called projection. This is when someone accuses you of the exact behavior they themselves are guilty of. If a manipulator is being dishonest, they might suddenly accuse you of lying. If they're the one being controlling, they'll accuse you of trying to control them. This works because it puts you on the defensive. Instead of addressing their behavior, you end up defending yourself against a false accusation, and the real issue never gets discussed. Now that we've covered the tactics, let's talk about why manipulation works so well on intelligent, capable people. It's not because those people are weak or naive. It's because manipulation exploits trust, empathy, and the basic human desire to keep peace in a relationship. The more empathetic you are, the more you tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, and manipulators know exactly how to use that against you. So how do you protect yourself? Here are the core principles. First, trust the discomfort. If a conversation consistently leaves you feeling confused, anxious, or smaller than before, that feeling is data. Your emotions are picking up on a pattern before your conscious mind has fully connected the dots. Second, separate the words from the pattern. A single argument doesn't define a relationship, but a repeated pattern, one where you're always the one apologizing, always the one adjusting, always the one questioned, that pattern tells the real story. Third, keep a mental or written record. Manipulation thrives on confusion and memory doubt. When you write things down, what was said, what actually happened, you create a version of reality that isn't up for negotiation. Fourth, practice saying no without over-explaining. Manipulators often push for a justification because a justification gives them something to argue against. A calm, short no is much harder to manipulate than a long explanation. Fifth, and most importantly, surround yourself with outside perspective. Manipulation isolates you, which is exactly why an outside voice, a friend, a family member, even a therapist can see clearly what you can't, simply because they're not standing inside the fog. Manipulation is not about weak people being tricked by clever people. It's about specific psychological triggers being used, often unconsciously, even by the manipulator themselves, to shift power in a relationship. Once you can name these tactics, they lose a huge part of their power. Awareness is the first form of protection. If this helped you understand a relationship, a friendship, or even a workplace dynamic a little more clearly, that's exactly why this topic matters. Understanding the mind, both our own and the people around us, is one of the most valuable forms of self-defense we have. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.